Hey everybody, hopefully everyone's had a good night, good sleep, going out for Halloween with their kids and stuff, with their girlfriends or wives or by themselves and being lonely. Whatever the case may be, um, making a video on this topic that might be very, very useful for a lot of you. Might not be useful for people who like to do math by themselves, but will be useful for people who, wish to go calculate things and maybe their math's off or want to use a different metric than just using actual like percentages and understanding that it takes X amount of last cannons to kill a rhino, or or what are the odds of me killing this tank, or what are the odds of my hecaton dying. A lot of you guys play um, Votan. Most of you play Votan actually, funny enough. So I'm going to use hecaton as a reference, and I'm going to open this DM with the Iron Canoe Chris. So everybody say hi / thank you to Chris for bringing this question a few months ago. How long ago was this? This was literally at the beginning of October. This question came up. The question came up because Chris was essentially asked this question of, hey, how can I basically, I don't do math. I have a hard time doing math, basically. Not hard time, but like in the middle of a game, it's tough for most people to calculate what do I need, what are the odds, blah, 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 right? What are the percentages and what's going to happen? How many threes am I going to roll? How many sixes am I going to roll? Whatever. You can do that math when you're sitting there if you want to, and math does lie to you, so you got to take that into consideration as well. But if you're just trying to do quick math, this is something that you definitely want to do. For example, when you hire somebody to work on your house, they give you an estimation. They can quickly rough off how much it's going to cost for X things because they have experience. They can't tell you the exact 100% unless you tell them to, and then if you want that, they're going to come back, do a full, they're going to go to the store, find out the prices, find out what you want, and tell you the exact markup for everything with their fees, and then they'll give you the final total. And they might tell you, hey, at the end, there might be a little bit $100, $200 more or less, depending on if we encounter problems or something happens, right? So they can do that. It just takes more time and effort to get the 100% mathematical equation correct, the output, basically. So what I like to do is not go down that route because it takes, let's say, another 5 to 10 minutes to make all the correct decisions using accurate mathematics. And it's better to do rough math or have a metric that doesn't rely on exact numbers, relies on rough estimates or or fractions. I'm going to be using fractions in this case, and different representations of what numbers mean. For example, a water bottle has 400 and whatever amount of milliliters of water in it. That's one water bottle. It's much easier for me to calculate how many water bottles I can drink than to calculate how many liters or milliliters of water I can drink. Right, so rather than having these bigger numbers that calculate the exact amount of water in a water that I'm going to be drinking, I just said water in a water, but water in a water bottle that I'm going to be drinking, I can just calculate how many water bottles I can drink. That's much easier for most people to comprehend and think about. I can drink 8 water bottles right now if I wanted to, rather than saying I can drink, whatever the fuck 8 times 400 is. It's almost like 5,000 milliliters, I think, of water. Yeah. So we're not doing 4,000. Yeah, we're not doing that. So so in this case, I'm going to use using Chris's notes here that I had with him, just to kind of give myself a little context in what I was writing for him, because some of it was talked about over a call, so I can't really go back and get all the numbers exactly, and I can't find the rest of it. And my computer was reset, so I don't have the notes. So my notes are gone, but I've done this before. So what I like to do is use this math. So if I have a hecaton, which is a tanky unit, okay, it has 16 wounds, it has T12, blah, 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 blah. Okay, it's tough. 2+ save. Keyboard, hello. I'm so bad. There it is. No, yeah, there it is. 2+ save, new keyboard problems. 2+ save, right? It has all of these things, AOC, cover, etc. how do we want to calculate what can kill a hecaton? Rather than calculating how many last cannons it takes to kill me, exactly, we're going to calculate what is scary in our opponent's list. For example, if we know how much a hecaton hits for, right? So let's use that as an example. We know that a hecaton one hecaton deals, let's say, 50% of another hecaton, okay, in terms of damage output. So if you were to ask yourself how many hecatons would it take to kill your own hecaton, you would probably say one's probably not going to do it, maybe two. I would say that maybe two, like 80% of the time, maybe two kill it if I don't have, they're going to ignore cover, all this stuff. Maybe two will kill it, depending on whatever's going on. And then 3 will for sure kill it. We're going to be like, 3 hecatons should 100% kill it. So all we're doing here is gauging our own durability against theirs. But we're gauging it in a different way. We're gauging it in how many hecatons does it take to kill something. So if it takes 1 hecaton, deals 50% of another hecaton. We're going to start looking at our opponent's list. There's Guard, there's Tau, there's all these armies. If we don't know how much damage a Riptide does, for example, or we don't know how much damage a Guard tank commander does, we just look at it and we're like, oh, it has D6 shots, D6 damage, blah blah blah, multi-meltas, or we look at a hecaton, we just see a big tank. We don't actually know the numbers. We don't know how much we should roll, shouldn't roll, and whatnot. The tank could roll 6 and roll 6s on every single damage roll, and we could lose our tank. That could happen, but on average, we don't actually know. So realistically, what we do is we take, okay, I think that if your Land Raider or tank, whatever you're using, whatever metric it is, if that unit has X amount of guns, aka a hecaton, if it has 2 big guns and some small shots, okay, it's gonna probably do half our life. So a tank commander or a Lehman Russ, right, is gonna do about half of our life, 50%, and we do it in fractions, mostly. And the fraction that I'm gonna be using is a D6, because we're all familiar with D6s because we play Warhammer, and it's much easier for us to know what a 4 out of 6. Okay, we just gotta roll a 4+ to do damage. We know that could go 50-50, very dicey. We can either roll 4, 5, or a 6, but most likely we're gonna roll like a 3 or 4, maybe a 5 sometimes. We're not gonna really roll a 6, right? So our hecaton can do anywhere between, on average, can do 4 out of 6 damage. Not 4 out of 6, but 4+ essentially. So it should actually be a 3 out of 6, not that. My bad. But it's gonna do half of our life, so 3 out of 6. A 3+ is pretty good. That's pretty good damage. So that's how much it's gonna deal. If we say that a hecaton is 200 something points, and we ask our opponent, hey, how much is that tank you have? And the opponent says, oh, this tank costs 300 something points. We can understand that if it's a tank and it has more anti-tank weapons than a hecaton has, then it's still a hecaton, but like maybe with how many more guns does it have? Does it have a magma rail and a beamer weapon? If it did, if our hecaton just upgraded magically to have both of those weapon profiles, we could relatively say that it's okay. This is a hecaton plus, which we'll give it the caveat of 4 out of 6. That it's slightly better than hecaton. We're going to increase it by 1 odds, +1, okay? We can all go +1, -1. We understand how this works. So if you guys are following along, you guys can understand why this makes sense for most people and why I use this and why I kind of coach this for certain players who bring this question up and don't rely on math. It's just much easier to understand. And then now I'm going to break it down really quickly, where I'm going to use, whether this is 100% accurate or not, we're going to be using essentially what I wrote here for Chris. Right, so I compared it to a Sagittar is 1/3, which is 2/6. Okay, a Sagittar will deal 2 out of 6 damage for a hecaton. It's scary, but it's not that scary. It's gonna hurt the hecaton, but it's not gonna really hurt it, kill it. It's nowhere close to killing it. You probably need 3 Sagittars to kill 1 hecaton, most likely. And that's also, even if it hits 6 out of 6 guys, it just means that you have to actually respect it. So this whole principle comes out of the fact that how much do you need to respect something? Because obviously one hackathon can swing up to 6 out of 6 threat range. It can swing down, like I was saying earlier, 2, 3, 4, 5, blah, 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 blah. But it's about respecting. If your opponent has one hackathon, one Sagittar shooting into your hackathon, you're at a 5 out of 6 threat level of what you need to assess. You need to tell yourself, ooh, this is looking pretty dicey, but I might be able to survive it on 1/6 out of the time. If my opponent rolls 6 out of 6, I'll die, but the average is going to do maybe 5 out of 6 damage, and I'll live on like 4 to 6 wounds. If he rolls good, I'm going to be suffering, or I'm going to have to flip the odds in my favor by banking on a CP reroll to get the odds more in my favor. It's 5 out of 6 right now. I'm going to kind of CP reroll one of the saving throws for sure to make sure that I'm trying to keep myself alive as much as possible. When you guys start adding in 9th edition, when we could blank a damage on our tanks and we could like heal it and blank 2 shots with Uther with automatic 6 to saving throws, that's when you can start really adjusting and skewing the numbers here. So going back to it, we have 3 out of 6 for Hackathon. We have 4 out of 6 for Hackathon Plus. Let's say a 300 to 350 point vehicle tank. Okay. And then 2 out of 6 is a Sagittar. And what we're doing here is assessing threat levels. Mostly. We're not actually doing math, but we're going to be doing math to assess whether we can kill something or whether they can kill us. So rather than calculating how many 3s you're going to roll, how many of this you're going to roll, all you're going to be calculating is how much threat am I putting onto something, and if the threat exceeds the 6, it's probably going to die. Okay? And so on. So here we go, and we go down here, and we start entering the hunter killer shots, right? So hunter killer, I say I would use those as a 1 out of 6 faction. 1 rocket is as good as a grenade stratagem. Super swing in this case just needs to hit and wound, and you will probably save. You can just think of it like that. Sagittar has 2 rockets, so 2 out of 3, so we basically say a hunter killer has 1 rocket shot. So if it's 1 shot out of the Sagittar, it's 1 out of 6 is a hunter killer. Right, not very threatening. We've all taken it. We've all seen it do good amount of damage to our tank, like a 5 or 6. Even a 4 hurts, but we've also just seen a hunter killer do like 1 damage, 2 damage, or just miss completely. So hunter killer is very low on the threat value. So hunter killer, rocket. Alright. So hopefully you guys are following along pretty sincerely here and everything's adding up and you guys can see this metric and how to use it. This can be added to anything. It doesn't have to be hackathons, Votan units, right? I was going to use 1 Riptide. It's not very scary. Actually, let's not type it here. But if we're assessing a Riptide, how much anti-tank do you think it is? Over here I said, somewhere over here, where's the Riptide? Yeah, so we go down even more, and I say a Dorn tank is like 5 out of 6, because it has like lots of AP, lots of guns, lots of multi-meltas. A tank with extra last cannons on top of a Hecaton. If it's like a Hecaton with 2 more last cannons strapped to it, it's doing 4 out of 6 damage to your tank. And then a 6 out of 6 is something that has a anti-tank knight. So if you're taking like Melta 6 profile or something crazy, you're looking at a big giant knight should probably kill a Hecaton. It's going to have a pretty good 100%, near 100% chance to kill Hecaton. Or a Storm Surge, something that costs 400 or double the amount of points as your tank and just equipped to kill it. Something very big and expensive, right? And something that has AP 4 or 5 can also increase the odds of like how much damage it does or how much it's going to hurt. Like a Lancer, in Gladiator Lancer has AP 3. It hurts. It does good anti-tank, but it's not going to pop your tank. A Repulsor Executioner has AP 4 that ups the AP. It also has plus 4 damage to all of its D6, so D6 plus 4 damage on its shots. So it really increases the amount of damage it deals mostly with the AP, but also with the damage, and it actually picks up rhinos and any other tanks if you fail the saves. AP4 is pretty massive, especially if you can ignore cover. It just would you would deal so much damage if the Hecatons had AP4, like Magma Reels, which is again why Magma Reels have higher average damage output, and Magma Reels are not a bad choice, especially with the range that they give you. It's just the fact that a lot of people don't take them because we really need, we don't have a way to manipulate a 6 anymore, and we really, really, really need like extra firepower, extra shots. The one shot just Sisters player just miracle dice it. There's too many armies in the game that just have a 6-up invul and just go like, oh, I rolled a 6. I guess your magma reel does 0 damage to me, or have 4-up invuls like demons and just like, okay, I'm gonna roll it. If I feel I'm gonna CP reroll it, and your damage did 0. I'd rather do 4 damage than do 0 damage. And sometimes you can also just roll low on the damage roll it by itself. So it's really good into things that have armor saves and not invuls, but as soon as you start getting into invul saves, the Hecatons just needs more shots to deal damage, which is why the bolt cannons on the Hecatons with ignore cover AP1 actually do about half or most of the damage the actual damage for a gun, which is always weird, but when you guys are playing it, you guys realize that, oh, my bolt cannons actually did 4 to 6 damage all of a sudden. That's interesting. Or finish something off that had a couple wounds left, while my big gun only did 4 to 8 damage. So yeah. But anyways, this is the metric I use. So compare this to like what you guys are doing right now. Add it to your like arsenal of tools, and if you guys have questions about this, just message me and I can break it down a little bit more, or when we have our talk. But it's pretty plain and simple. Hunter Killer does 1 out of 6, Sagittarius does 2 out of 6, Hecaton does 4 out of 6, or sorry, not Hecaton, Hecaton Plus, which is a Hecaton size unit or profile, but also has a little bit extra anti-tank equipped to it. If you could take a Hecaton, strip off its guns, bolt cannons, add in like last cannons, it would become a Hecaton Plus. Right, and if you add a Hecaton plus a Sagittar, you're looking at a 6 out of 6, and you start adding these numbers up. As soon as you hit and this evaluates your threat level and how much you need to kill something. So if I was trying to kill your Hecaton, again, I'm just reciting what I was saying earlier, but I would grab 3 Sagittars, or I would grab, 2 Sagittars and have each of the Sagittars equipped with a Hunter Killer each, and that would give me relatively good amount of damage to kill your Hecaton. Even if I don't kill it, the threat is there that I could kill it, and I'm most likely going to hurt the hell out of it with doing this type of math. Okay, and someone out there, if you're listening to this and you're like, wait a second, the Sagittar only has AP whatever, and the Hecaton's going to be saving on 2s, it's never going to do any damage to it. That's not the point of this. The point of this is not to look at that stuff, it's to use your mind and put it into a fraction in something that you understand. And there's a very good thing right here that I said to Chris, which is right here. So it's a lot easier for us to visualize 17. Sorry, it's easier for us to understand what 17 to 23% is, rather than trying to understand what 2 out of 11 or 3 out of 13 is. This actually ended up being the accurate numbers, which is very funny. Which is why I said here that I'm not a mathematician, but my mind can spit out these numbers, which are pretty close to representation. Same thing as you guys remember back when we were talking about, what's his name? I'm forgetting his name right now, but he asked, was it Gabe? I think it was Gabe asked, I wonder what the percentage is of how often secret missions actually work. And I said probably around 3%. And actually, when we looked up the stats, thanks to JT, right? Yeah, JT. I looked it up, and it was actually like 3%. So that's a perfect example of why I can come up with numbers that I haven't actually looked into, but come up accurately just through my head processing it differently than other people, or close enough without doing the actual like one-to-one math. Just like I do these things, it's pretty close. So if you guys are having trouble with doing stuff, just try to break stuff down into these numbers, try to put up your own metrics and use fractions, and then add up the fractions, and you'll get the result that you're looking for. And if you really want to kill something like a hackathon 100%, you guys can understand how much overkill are you doing. 3 hackathons, you're overkilling it by about 50%, so your chances of actually killing it are pretty much guaranteed. About 50% is the point where I'm kind of like, okay, I'm not gonna put any more into it. I think that's my cap, by the way, is when I'm trying to kill something, I won't put more than 50% into killing it. Unless I have nothing else to fire at, or this is the only thing I need to worry about, then I'll put like 200% into it just to 100% kill it, because some armies, like I said in the game, just have 4-up invuls and blah blah blah, and they're all fucking annoying like demons, and I hate them, and it's undoable against 4-up invuls. By the way, guys, my favorite metric that I use against 4-up invuls is pretty much you gotta add 50% more to this. If I'm trying to kill a greater demon, if a hecaton all of a sudden got a 4-up invul and I'm trying to kill it, this number that is a 6, I'm sorry, this is not a 6 anymore, this goes up to a 9. I need a 9 out of 6 to actually kill it, because 50% of whatever I'm going to put into this thing is going to get saved, and I have to rely that my opponent's going to make 75% of saves. That's the worst case scenario I'm willing to give my opponent or myself, is my opponent is going to save 75% to 80% of his saving throws, and so I need to overcome that much RNG. When I play against demons, I specifically do this in competitive games, and that is the only way I actually kill things. And I don't care if they roll like all ones and die. The fact is, I've seen it happen way too many times, and I refuse to give custodies or demons or anything with a 4-up invul the chance of just walking up to my face, taking like 20 fucking last cannons and living. I'm just gonna put, 30 last cannons into it, and then it's gonna die 100%. That's the metric I've found for that, so use it as you will. Thanks for listening. Feel free to reply and drop messages about the video if you guys liked it. If there's anything else you want me to make a content about, feel free to message me or ask about it. And yeah, doing these random videos for you guys when I feel like is it's like a side hobby. It's fun. I have lots of free time when I'm not gaming or coaching. Pretty busy this weekend, and Worlds is coming up, so things will be getting hectic. But luckily 40k is kind of dead. Yeah, I'm gonna post this video, so let me know, guys. Thanks.